Hello viewers, before we begin building our project, I want us to learn about MVC because that is the design pattern that we are going to use to build our application. Okay, so what is MVC? We go to this Mozilla website, going to see where to read about MVC. MVC stands for Model View Controller. Is a pattern in software design commonly used to implement user interfaces, data, and controlling logic. It emphasizes a separation between the software business logic and display. This separation of concern provides for a better division of labor and improve maintenance. There are different design patterns that are available, but the most commonly used pattern is MVC. There is MVVP, MMVP, depending on the pattern that you decide, but the most commonly used one is MVC. So you can see the diagram here, how the model view controller. If you look at the model, you say the model defines what data the app should contain. It's just where you actually define the type of data that the app should contain. In our own regard, that we make use of blog posts, so we are going to define the type of data we are expecting for our blog post. Okay, the model actually interact directly with the database. Okay, so it interact directly with the database. The view define how the app data should be displayed. For example, we are serving JSON file, so it is actually the view that actually define the how it should be displayed. Okay, so we're going to see that when we start developing. Then the controller contains the logic that update the model and or view in response to input from the users of the app. The controller serves as a mediator or intermediate between the view and the model. So you can also read more, just follow the step. Okay, so we have already discussed this. You can read it from the Mozilla website if you want to learn more about MVC. Okay, so as we said, it is a design pattern that separates an application into three interconnected components. Okay, this separation manages complexity and make code easier to maintain and scale. All right, so if you look at the image from the Mozilla website, so we have the model, that is where we define the data structure. Example, update application to reflect added item. So we also have the view. The view defines display, that is the UI of our application, especially if you are designing app using a template engine, for example. So the UI is actually the view allows you to control. But in terms of our API we are developing, it is actually the JSON file we are going to serve that the view will determine. Now we also have the controller. It contains the control logic, and that is to receive update from view, then notify model to add item. Why the item will be manipulated by the model. The model actually interacts directly to the database. The model to define the data and business logic, to manage data storage, rules, retrieval, manipulation, and validation. It is independent of the user's interface. Example, SQLite query. Because we are going to make use SQLite as our database, all the logics that concern the database that we have to the data manipulation within the database, all the queries, select, update, delete, all those things we do in the database are being controlled by the model. It also allows us to do data validation as well. All right, so the model control everything we are going to do using the SQLite queries or SQL query. So I'm introducing this thing before we start so that it will not look strange when we start restructuring our app to make use of the MVC pattern. All right. When we talk of the view, that is the presentation layer, now it presents the application data to the user. So display information in a user-friendly format such as a web page or graphical user interface. Alright, example. So since we are going to build API, so the JSON file we are sending is actually the view. So it is a response to send it to the client. It is send the JSON response to the client. And if you are using a template engine like EJS or HTML, so those UI is also the view, all right? So it allows the user interaction as well, all right? So let me see the next. Now the controller, actually the request handler, it acts as an intermediary between the view and the model, manage the flow of data and user interaction. It receives user input from the view, process it by interacting with the model to update the data, and then select the appropriate view to display the result. Example, when a user creates a new blog post, the controller receives this request, update the list of blog posts in the model, and then instruct the view to refresh so the new posts appear in the blog post. Now, we are going to be building our application using this MVC pattern, okay? So we are going to use a professional code structure, like we are going to have the controllers, we also are going to have databases, the folder that will contain the database, okay? We are going to have the configuration folder, error handler, okay? With that, this is the model. Okay, so the model folder is going to have all the code that will be interacting with the database. This folder is going to contain the database, and the model is going to contain the code that will be interacting with the database directly. Okay, so that is how it is going to work, guys. So the model folder is going to contain all the code that will be interacting directly to the database. DB configuration will also have the logic to connect to the database as well. Then we are going to have a route folder. The route folder is going to contain all the routes that we need to create in our app. Okay, so you have already seen the basic route, or the get route, the post route, the delete route, and the update route. All those logic will be assigned into the route folder, okay? Also have the utils folder. The utils folder is going to contain any utility function, maybe any helper function that our app needs. The utils folder is going to contain any utility function that our app may need, that we don't want to define directly into the app file. So if we have any utility function or any utility function will be added into this util folder. Okay, so we are going to have .env file in case if we need to pass any secret key to our app. This is where it is going to be entered. That is in .env file. Okay, so I also have the example here, .env.example. This one will be pushed to the git repo, but this one .env cannot be put in the git repo. Okay, now we're also going to have .gitignore. The .gitignore file is going to contain all the list of the folders and files that we don't want to push into the git repo. So all those things will be, so those are the things our app are going to have, guys. Then we also are going to have the entry point of our application, which is app.js. You can give this one any name. Alright, so optionally you can add documentation. So this one is optional, guys. So you can add the documentation, and finally the readme.md can also add it. The package.json and package.log will be added automatically. Alright, so this is our application structure. This structure is going to allow us to actually scale this project in the future. Okay, For example, when we start to add users and authentication, authorization, all those things, the way we structure our project here is going to enable us to scale it in the future. All right. Okay, that is it, guys. Let's see what we have next. Okay, benefit of the MVC pattern. Okay, so these are some of the benefit of using MVC pattern, guys, that we have already shown you. Okay, separation of consign. Now each component has a distinct role, leading to cleaner and more organized code. So that is one of the benefit. Code reusability. Component can be reused across different parts of application or in other applications. Assuming that you want to use the code in another application, it is easy to use and you can reuse all those things. Okay, so that's why you need to use this pattern to organize your data. Then maintainability is also one of the benefits. Now change to one component have less impact on the others, making update and bug fixes easier. Now parallel development is another benefit. Different developers can work on the model. Okay, so if you have many developers, some will be working on the model, view and controller simultaneously. So that is one of the good thing about structuring your data to use MVC pattern. If you are ready to dive into developing with MVC pattern, let's get started. Hello viewers, welcome back to this course. In this session, we are going to discuss about HTTP. HTTP stands for Hypertext Transfer Protocol. It is a set of rules that define how messages are formatted and transmitted between web client, that is your browser, apps, and servers. HTTP is a protocol that defines how data are being transferred between the client. The client can be your browser, your Android application, iOS application, desktop application, or anything that can make HTTP request. And the servers is actually where you want to get the data. So when you make a request from the client, so you get response back. The protocol or the rules that define how this data are being transferred is known as HTTP. HTTP request and response, that is when you make a request to a server, just from the diagram here, so a client can be anything that can make HTTP request. Okay, so the client make a HTTP request. Example, when your browser make request to the server. So let's say you want to get a blog post from a server. So when you make a request to the server to get a blog post, the server will now return the response. Okay, the server will now get the blog post from the database and send it back as response to you. That cycle is known as request response or client server communication. The client make a request and the server give you response, just like the way you communicate with human being. Okay, when you request for something and you get response, that is exactly what is going on here. With HTTP, you can load web pages, submit form, make AJAX calls, and so on. HTTP is stateless. What it means is that when you make a request to the server doesn't remember the request. It doesn't remember any information about your request after serving you your response. Okay, the server does not remember your last request until you make another request. It means that every request is completely independent. If you want to make a get request, you want to get data, you get the data. You want to post data, you post the data. You want to update data, you update it. So they are totally independent of each other. Okay, programming, local storage, cookies, session are used to create enhanced user experiences. Now especially the cookies, local storage, sessions are used especially when you want to maintain a state. Since HTTP is stateless, you need these features to enhance your user experience. For example, with the session storage, the server can be able to actually store your session, and you can use cookies to store some cookies, ID, and so many other things. Okay. Likewise, the local storage. All right. We also have HTTPS. HTTPS stands for Hypertext Transfer Protocol Secure. It is a way of securing your data when you are receiving it or getting it. Okay. So we mostly use HTTPS to make requests now, especially when you want to get a secured data. It means that data sent is encrypted. So instead of sending your data over HTTP, which are unsecure, you need to use the HTTPS. It means that when you are sending your data, it will be encrypted and will be decrypted only when you receive it. So that is how the HTTPS work. So it means that when you are sending data, it will be encrypted and be decrypted when you receive the response. Okay. It makes use of what is known as Secure Socket Layer (SSL) or Transport Security Layer (TLS). That is the technology it makes use to secure your data. It means that web host installed certificate that enables you to encrypt this data. All right. We also have HTTP methods. Now, HTTP method and CRUD operations, it is actually the verb of your API, okay? When we talk of HTTP method, it is a verb of an API. These are the HTTP method and these are the CRUD equivalent, okay? We have the HTTP method post and the equivalent, that is to create. It allows you to create a new resource, example, a new blog post, okay? When you're actually making a post request, you want to send data to the server to create something. That means create. You are creating content. We also have the get method. Each time you make a request to the server to get information, it means that you are making a get request. That means you are reading data. That is, you retrieve data. Example, get a list of posts or a single post. We also have the put method. You make use of this method when you want to update something from the server. You use it to replace a full existing resource. Both the put and the patch method are used for updating. The difference is that you can design your API to use patch if you want to partially update content of the server, okay? For example, modify part of an existing resources. We also have the delete method. So the delete method equivalent to CRUD is delete as well. It is used to remove a resource. So when you are making a request to remove content, for example, when you want to delete your username, when you want to delete your account, or to delete something from the server, so you're actually making a delete method, and the CRUD equivalent is also delete. I also left a link for you here if you want to read more about these methods. You can go to this link and read more about it. We also have HTTP header feeds. So the headers are classified into three categories. We have the general, response, and request, okay? These are some of the properties that are available on each of them. So under the general header, you are going to get request URL. The request URL is actually the URL that you use to make requests to the server. Then you are going to get a request method, which it can be a get method, post method, put method, or delete method. Then the status code, we are going to see the status code later, but this status code is the number that actually define the success status of the request. We also have the remote address referral policy. Under the response header, we are going to see the server, actually the server that gives you response, and also set cookie is something that happens in the server. The content type, the type of data you get, or the type of the response. Also the content length, the length of the response, and you also get date. There are other properties that are valuable, okay? I do not list all of them here. We also have the request header. A request header is actually the header when you are making a request. Response header is the header when you are getting response, while the request header is the header when you are making request to the server. When the server is giving you back the data you requested from, you are going to get the response header. Under the request header, you are going to get cookies, especially if you want to send cookies. Accept means the type of data you want to accept. It can be applications like JSON, it can be a text, it can be an image, and so on, binary data, and so on. Content type is also the type of data you are also expecting to get. It can be a text slash HTML. The authorization is actually the type of property you send when you want to do authentication, okay, or authorization. For example, when you want to make a request to the server to get something, you may need to provide your identity. So this identity can be in form of token. So you send it as an authorization header, okay? User agent is the type of browser or device you use to make the request, okay? This is a typical example of HTTP headers, okay? You can see we have under the general, the request URL is the URL that you use to make the request. We also have the request method. You can see the method of the request. In this case, it is post request. The status code, we are coming to that, but you can see 201 means that something was created, because this URL, when you are making a post request, it means that you are creating something in the server, okay? And you can see it is created and it returns this status code 201. The remote address also represents the URL that you are sending the data to. We have the referral policy. In this case, it is strict origin, one cross origin. We also have the response headers. The response header is the headers you get from the response, okay? So you have the connection, content length, content type. In this case, is applications like JSON. This content type can be the HTML image, can be a text file, PDF, can be a video as well. So this is the content type. You also see the date you get the request. We also have other ones. Then under the request headers, you also have the accept. Okay, accept here, it means that you are accepting everything. We have different properties like accept encoding, accept language, connection, content length, content type as well. You have the host. This case is local host, origin, the request origin. So the origin you use to send the request. In this case is the same origin. So we have others, and this is the user agent here. So it's just like a browser or a device that make the request. That is the user agent. We also have other properties. You can just check them and see how it look like. We have HTTP status code, guys. A status code is actually a 3-digit code that tells the client the result of its request, okay? So when you make a request, you get this number, just like you saw in the previous screen. The most commonly used HTTP status code are 200. 200 means okay. That means the GET or put request work perfectly. Okay, you get data successfully. We have 201 status code, which means created. It means that a new resource was created in the server after a post request. When you make a post request to create content, if the content was created successfully, you are going to get 201 status code. We also have 301, which means move. It means that the URL that you are making request to has been moved. It also means redirect. You will be redirected to new URL. When you are making a request to a particular endpoint, if If that endpoint has been moved, you are going to receive 301 status code, okay? Which means that the data you are requesting is coming from a new URL instead of the one you used to make the request, okay? We have 400 status code, which means bad request. So it also means client error. That means the server couldn't understand the request. So when you send invalid data, it is going to return this 400 status code, which means bad request. We also have 401, which means unauthorized. When you make a request to an endpoint that you are not authorized, you are going to receive this 401 status code. We have 404 status code, which means not found, and it is very common. It can also mean a client error as well. When you want to get a resource that doesn't exist in the server, you are going to actually get this 404 error. It means that the requested resource doesn't exist on the server. We also have the 500 status code, which means internal server error. So when you have error from the server, you are going to get 500 status code. It is a kind of generic error that occurred on the server. Right? So if you want to read more about status code, guys, you can go to this URL and read more about it. Okay, let me show you some example, guys. Let me open a browser. Okay, I have a local host running. So let me make a request to a local host /post. Okay. You can see that as I send the request, I'm getting requests from this endpoint. If you want to see all these things we discuss, let me right click and go to console, go to the network tab. Let me just resize it like this. Let me make a new request to this URL. Okay, I have a new request under the network tab. Here you can see endpoint of different resources, but the one that I make is this post endpoint. So if I click on it here, you can see the headers we discuss about, guys. We have the general header, we have the response header, we have the request headers. So under the general, you can see different properties under the general headers. You have the request URL. So this is the URL that I entered here. The request method is get because I'm just getting content from the server. I also have the status code 304, which means not modified. It means that I make request to this URL before and got this post. So I'm getting the post again. That's why I'm having 304 status code, which means not modified. Okay, so the resources that I got, they have not been modified. But when you make the request for the first time to get this post, you are going to have 200 status code. For the first request, it's going to be 200 status code. When you make request to get the same content again, you are going to have 304 status code, which means not modified. We also have the remote address and referral policy. Under the response headers, this is what we have here. When you make a request to a live URL, you are going to have more properties here. Okay, so just you can go through the properties. You have already discussed some of them. We also have the request headers. This is it here. We have the accept. We have different properties that are here. We have already discussed most of them, so you can go through it. Try to make a request to a live URL like google.com. You are going to see more properties here. Okay, so let me go to the console. Let me just clear the console. So let me just do another request. Let me do a post request. I've written some function that will enable us to do a post request. You can see the method here is post, and we are going to send this data to the server. We are going to send this JSON data to the server. Let me change the title to test. Let me change the content to test post. Now the author, let me just change the author to test, and the category is also test. We are using a fetch API to make a post request to this endpoint. So, and we are sending data. We want to create this data in the database. Here we are going to log the result of the response. Okay, you can see the URL that I enter is corresponding to this URL, but this time around it is a post method. Remember that your browser cannot make a post request by default. Okay, so that's why I'm using the console. I'm using the console and I'm using the fetch API to do so. So let me press enter now and see what we have. It is a promise. Here it is pending, but here we get success through. This is the one we're actually getting from this console here. This response, so let me expand it. Okay, this result you are seeing here is the one we just log here. Okay, the one I just log here. This console.log is the result we are getting here. But if we go back to the network tab now, this is the endpoint of the last post request we make. Let me just click on it. Okay, if you look at it now, you can see the headers of that post request. So you can see the request URL, we have it. The request method is post. Status code is 201, which means created. We created a post from the server. We created a new post and it returned a status code of 201. We also have the remote address. Under the response headers, we also have these properties. And under the request headers, these are the properties as well. Okay, you can see the content type. The content type here is applications like JSON. Likewise, the same thing with the content type of the response headers. We are getting JSON file, application type as JSON file back. Okay, if you want to see the data I send, you go to payload. You can see the data I sent through that fetch request. Okay, so these are the data I send. And if you go to response, so these are the result I got back from the server. The same thing that I have in the console, the one that I log here. So I'm getting it back as well from the response header of under the response tab in the network section. Okay, you can see it here. The last post here is post with ID of 6. The post we created have an ID of 7. You can see the response here. So let me refresh the browser. Now I'm making a GET request. Okay, now that I make a GET request, you can see I have another post added, the one we just added from the console. You can see it here. So I hope with these examples and illustration, guys, you now understand HTTP and HTTP methods. We are going to learn more practical way of actually making use of this HTTP method we have already discussed. Thank you for watching this section. Hello everyone, welcome back to this course. In this session, we are going to discuss about advanced routing in Express. A route is a section of Express code that associates an HTTP verb, get, post, put, delete to a URL path/pattern and a function that is called to handle that pattern. We have already defined route in the previous video. Okay, when we make use of app.get, app.post, app.put, what you're actually defining is a route. Okay, before we start restructuring our project that we are building, we need to understand the Express routing. That's why I'm introducing it to you, so that nothing will look strange when we start making use of all these routing features. I hope it will help you to get better understanding of the future project, especially when we start restructuring our project. This is the syntax we use to define that route. You use the app object provided by Express. So you say app dot. When you say app dot, then you call the method, the HTTP method. It can be the get, post, put, delete. Okay. So when you say app dot method, after that you define the path, then followed by handler function. The handler function is the function that runs when the route is matched. Okay, that is this part you define here. So when it match, the handler function will be called. You can also pass multiple functions. So all you need to do is to separate each of the function with a comma. Alright, so it is also known as middleware. From this table, you can see we have different methods. The method here can be get, post, put, or delete. Okay, for example, when you say app.get, then you pass the path. The path can be /post, that is the URL path on the server, /post. Then the handler function is the function that runs when this route is matched. So this is the syntax here. If you want to learn more about routing in Express, you can visit this link from the official documentation of Express to learn more. Okay, so this is the link where you can go to actually learn more about routing in Express. Alright, Express has a special feature known as Express Router. Express Router allows for modular organized routing by creating separate router instances for different parts of the application. For example, you can have a user's route. You can also have a product route, post route, and so on. And this Express Router enables you to define each of these routes separately, okay? For you to be able to get the router, you get it from the Express router like this, okay? So that is from Express, you call the router like this. This router object you are seeing here, it is equivalent to the app you have been using to create routes, okay? It is equivalent to the app object, okay? But this time around, instead of using app.get, you make use of router.get, okay? So you use this router object to access all the HTTP method we have already learned about, such as the get, put, post, delete, and so on. But the only difference now is that this router object enables you to define different routes for different parts of the application. Alright, it has the same features as app object. You can use it to define the route just like /post. Then you pass the handler function just like the app object, guys. So it's the same features, okay? When we talk of the route function, we are talking of the callback you pass into the HTTP method you defined. So the handler function mostly enables you to send a response back to the client, okay? The callback usually takes 3 arguments: request, response. You can also pass next. Especially when you are making use of this callback as a middleware, you can pass next. When the callback serves as a middleware, you usually pass the next function. Okay, so we have already discussed about it in the middleware session. So just go to that session to learn more about middlewares and how you can pass even multiple arguments to this request object. If the callback is not serving as a middleware, the request and response is actually what you need to define your route, okay? You can pass multiple callback functions into this HTTP method or the router methods, okay? So that's what you should bear in mind. We are going to be making use of the router to organize our application. Okay, the router feature that is available in Express, we are going to be making use of it to organize our application. Okay, that is, we'll be using it to define our route. Stay tuned as I see you in the next session. Hello viewers, welcome back to this course. In this lesson, we are going to start restructuring our project to use the MVC pattern design and also the routes that we have already discussed in the previous lessons. Okay, if you want to learn more about MVC and routes, you can check the lesson on them for you to understand it better. We are going to start making use of the practical application of the MVC pattern design and also the routes, okay? This is an example structure of how our project is going to look like. Let's jump into VS Code to get started. Okay, this is where we left up last time, guys. Okay, right now we have the basic route, and you can see that all the code are in one file. We are going to restructure this app to use different files. Okay, instead of having all the codes in a one file, we need to restructure it to use different file. We are going to create a different file to hold the error handler and also the middlewares. Okay, we are going to create a route folder to hold all the post routes. Okay, so this is the basic route we defined last time, guys. This is the basic route we defined, where we are serving this dummy data. If you go up here, this is the dummy data we are serving. Okay, now we are going to restructure this project to serve a data from our database. Remember, we have already created models and inserted data into our database. We also defined a function that enable us to work with the database. We imported it here, but we don't need it in this app.js. We are going to restructure this project so that it will be well organized and look more professional and implement all the MVC and route pattern we have already discussed. Now, what I'm going to do right now, guys, I'm going to create a folder in the root directory, and the folder name is going to be route. I create a folder called route like this. Just press enter. Okay, you can see the folder is empty. I select this folder and create a new file. I'm going to call it postroute.js like this. Press enter. Every route that pertaining to the post will be created here. Okay, I'm going to import the router from Express. Import router from Express like this. Okay, then I'm going to create the instance of the router by defining const router equals to router. You just call it like this. Okay, this router object now is equivalent to accessing the app object that we have already used here. Remember, here we are getting the app object. Okay, so which give you the express. If you look at this place now, it will give you the router. Okay, the router object, and this router object can perform everything that the app object can perform. Thus, you can see it here. Now that we have the router, we can use it to define our route. Okay, let me go back to the app.js. Let me copy this home route. Let me just copy everything, the home route like this. Let me just cut it. Then I go back to the post route. Then let me paste it. Instead of using app.get, I'm going to use the router. So I use router.get. This router is what we are using here instead of the app.get. Let me copy the post route. Let me just copy it with the comment. Go back and paste it. Instead of using app.get, I can use router. Save it. So what I'm going to do, guys, I'm just going to copy all the route. Let me just copy everything, guys. Let's copy it like this. Go back to the post route. So let me just paste all of them here. Okay, let me change all the instance of the app to router. Let me select all the app and change it to router like this and save it. Let me go and grab the post. Remember, we are sending the post. That is the dummy data. It is not available here. I go to the app session. Let me copy the post. Let me just cut it like this. Cut it like this. Go back and paste it here. That is the dummy data we are serving. Let me save it. Let me save this one as well. The server is already running. You can see server running on localhost port 3000. Let me just go to the home route. It said that the content you are looking for is not found. Now this is because we have already defined a not found route. And if I go to /post, and we still get the same thing, you can see we cannot be able to get all the posts now. So to be able to get all these posts, what you need to do now, Let's go back to our app. We need to export this router. So this router we define here, we need to export it. So let me just export it like this. Export router, export default router. Now that I exported it, let's go to let's go to the app. I'm going to import the router. Here I will say import post router from route/post_route.js. We just imported the router we exported from here. For us to be able to access all the route we have here, we need to use it as a middleware. Okay, this post router, we need to use it as a middleware. So here, what I'm going to do here, let me just remove this. What I'm going to do here, I'm going to call app.use. I need to pass this post router. So I need to pass it as a middleware post router, just like this. Let me save it now. Let's go back to the home route, guys. Let's go back to the browser. So this is the /post. Before we were getting not found. Okay, but let me refresh this page now. You see, guys, we have all our posts back. We have all our posts back, guys. So just because we use that post route as a middleware, our API is now working perfectly now. So if I go to home page, okay, we have server is running. If I go to /post, that is all the posts, we have all the posts. I can get number 1 post, can get post of ID of 1, and we have a single post with ID of 1. If I go to the post that doesn't exist, and you can see post not found, you can see our API is working as normal. If I go back, you can see we are no longer defining all the route in our app.js. We are no longer defining it here. Here we define our route and we serve it in app.js here, right? And everything is now working. Let me remove the things we no longer need here. Let me just, all this import, we don't need it now. So I'm going to remove it. Okay, so let's just clean our project. This error handler are not found and middlewares. We are going to create a separate file for it. Let me create another folder. I'm going to call it error handler. Then inside the error handler folder, let me create a file, error handler.js. Let's go back to the app.js. Let me cut this error handler function. Let's cut it like this. Go to error handler and paste it. I'm going to export it. Export it as default error handler like this. Let me go back to the app.js and import it. Import error handler. Okay, I just imported it like this. This is where we use it, app.use error handler. After the post route, we have the error handler. Remember, we are placing all these middlewares according to the order we want it to run. Okay, you can see we have the middleware section here. We also have our route. We have the error handler. Okay, so let me just add comment, error handler like this. I can even move this one to error handler to be at the bottom of not found page, because this one too is a page. Okay, let me move it like this. Then this one is going to be not found 404 like this. I'm going to copy not found function. So let me just cut it and move it to a separate file. Let me create another folder. I'm going to name it not found. Then you can name your folder anything, guys, or your file anything. Here I create a file not found.js like this. Let me paste the function not found. Let me export it. Export default not found. Let me save it and go back to the app.js and import it. Import not found. Import not found from notfound.js like this. You can see there is no error, guys. We have restructured this thing. Okay, we have restructured our application. This middleware, we are not using it, but I'm going to cut it. Let me just cut it. We are not using it, but let me create a separate folder. This folder, we call it middlewares. So this folder is going to contain middlewares. So you can name your middlewares anything, guys. Okay, let me create a file called middlewares.js. Press enter. Let me just paste it here. Okay, right now we are not making use of it. I will just allow it here. Okay, and just the name middlewares like this. So since you are not making use of it, I will just allow it in this file. Later on, any middleware we may need in our app, we are going to define it here. Then let me save the app.js. You can see the server is still running perfectly, guys, and no error. Let me remove these middlewares that we are not using, guys. Let me just remove it. Okay, let me also remove this one like this. Okay, and our app is still running, guys. So let's go back and test if everything is still working. If I go to the browser, let me try to get all the posts. Let me just go to /all post. You can see that we have all the posts, guys. Can get a single post /5 like this. I get a single post with ID of 5. I can try to go to the post that doesn't exist, that is /post with ID of 500. We don't have it. Let me try to get it. Okay, post not found. If we try to go to the route that doesn't exist in our server /users, we don't have users route. Okay, the content you are looking for is not found, is what we have. That means that everything is working, guys. And now we have already defined all these files in different folders, and everything is still working. Here we hard coded the port. Let us make it more dynamic. I'm going to create a file .env. The .env file is in the root directory, guys. You can see it is in the root directory. So inside the .env, I'm going to define a port. Port equals to 3600 like this. That is the port. To access this port, we need to go to the app.js. So we need to import .env. So remember we installed .env. You can see it here. So let's go back to our app. I'm going to import .env. Let me import it here. Import .env /config like this. This is how you need to import it. If you import it like this, it is already calling .config like this. Okay, let me create const port equals to process.env.port. So this is how to access environment variable, guys. You use the process.env like this, then the variable name. This port is what we define here. Okay, you can see we have port, and the value is this thing. Okay, the value is 3600. So the variable name is port and the value is 3600. So there, that is how to access it. Process.env.port, and it is going to return the port we define. If I console.log the port, you can see we have 3600 here. Instead of hard coding this port, I'm going to pass the port. like this. Okay, I'm also going to make it dynamic here, change it to port like this. Then if this port doesn't exist, if I go back to the environment variable here, if I remove this port, if I remove it and save our work now, if I go back to the app.js and save it, we are going to have undefined. Okay, the port is undefined. So instead of having undefined, we are going to say port or port 3600. You can see now it is using this hard-coded one here. If this one is undefined, it is going to use this one. Okay, so that is how it will work. Let me go back and return it, save it, and that is it, guys. Let me remove this console. We have done the restructuring, guys, and we will continue in the next session. Thank you for watching. Okay, welcome back, guys. We are going to continue restructuring our app to use controllers. Okay, now remember we have already defined route, and you know how we get all this route, and we are still serving the dummy data here. So the reason I'm still using this dummy data, I want you to see how we are restructuring everything from scratch. I want you to understand how this data is going and where it is coming from. So we have restructured this project and we created a separate route, and we put all our route in a separate route, and you can see everything is still working. Now let's talk about controllers. All right, so I'm going to create another folder in the root directory, guys. So I select the root directory, I go to the new folder. I'm going to call the folder controllers like this. Okay, and press enter. Inside the controllers folder, remember when we were defining about MVC, the controller is an intermediate between models and view. Okay, it means that the controller enable us to communicate between the database and the view, which is the client. It means that the controllers intermediate between the view and the model. All right, so we have already defined models. Okay, you are going to get all to understand all these things, so based on this restructuring. Now inside the controllers folder, I'm going to create a file. Since we are working with the post, I'm going to call it postcontroller.js like this. Press enter. Let me close these ones that we are not using. Let me just close all these things. Let me just close all of them. We have the post controllers we just created. Here I need to go to the routes. You can see the route that enable us to get all the posts. This is it here. The handler function, that is the callback that we pass into this get route. We are going to cut it. That is the handler function. We'll just cut it like this. Now I need to go to the post controller. I'm going to define another function. Let me define a constant function, const get all post equals to, I just paste the function we copy. What we copy from that route, that is exactly the same function that I'm defining here. Okay, so I'm going to use export like this. Let me save it. Let's go back to our route. Let's go back to the post route. Then I'm going to import the function, that is the one we defined here, get all posts. Let me go back and import it. Import get all post like this, and it is coming from the controllers / post controllers. From the controllers folder, this is where we define it, and that is exactly what we are importing. I need to put .js like this. Here I'm going to replace, remember it is the same thing we defined before. It was a function, so I'm going to just replace it, get all post like this. Okay, just like this, guys. Then let me save it. If I go back to our browser and try to access all the posts, let me go back and try to access all the posts. Let me press enter. Okay, we have error, guys. Okay, the site can't be reached. That means the server is not running. Let's go back and start the server. Okay, the server is running. What is wrong, guys? Let's go back. Localhost port 3000. Let's check our server. Localhost port. Oh, we changed the port, guys. We changed the port. That's why we are having error, guys. Okay, so you can see our port. Remember, we defined the new port in environment variable, which is port 3600. Okay, and we are trying to access port 3000, which is no longer exist. So let me change the port to 3600, just like this. Let me press enter now. Okay, instead of getting all the posts, we have internal server error. You can see our error handler is working, guys. Okay, internal server error, that means there is error in the server, guys. So let's go back to our console. I hope we log the error in the console. Let me go back. Oh my god, I can't see the error in the console. I can't see the error in the console. I hope we are handling the error. Let's go back to the app.js. This is the middleware that handle the error, guys. You can see the error handler is in the app.js, but you can see that we are using app.useErrorHandler, and we are no longer defining our route in the app. Okay, this app object is no longer having our route. So we need to cut this thing, both the not found, so that we will not throw another error. So I'm going to cut everything. Okay, both the app.use not found and the error handler. I'm going to cut it. I just cut everything out from the app.js. Let's go back to the route section, post route, where we define the route. At the bottom, before the export, I'm going to paste it here, just like this, guys. Instead of using app.use, we are going to change the app to router. Okay, and let me change it to router.use, like this. We need to import the not found. Let me just import it, not found, and also the error handler. Let me just import it as well, like this. Let me save the work now. I hope they are imported. Okay, you can see not found was imported from not found. We also have the error handler was also imported. Now, let's go to app.js. Let me save it. I can remove the error handler and not found here, since we are no longer using it here. Can remove it and save the work. Let's go to the browser now and see. Okay, I'm still getting error, guys. Internal server error. Let's see if we are going to get the log now. Okay, now we have the log, guys. Okay, you can see the error handler is working. We are now getting the log in the console. Something went wrong. Okay, we tried the URL we access is /post, method is get, and the reference error. Okay, post is not defined. Wow, we are trying to access a post that was not defined from this route, guys. So let's go back to our post controller. Okay, we are sending the post and it is not defined. Okay, it is not defined. We need to go back to the post route. Okay, now we are having this post here. I'm going to cut to the post. Let me just cut to the post. Let me just cut it and go back to the post controller. Let me go to the top of it and paste it like this. Remember, this post can come from database. Okay, but now we are just hard coding it so that you will know how the controller and the model work together. You can see now that our post we are sending is now in the controller, because this is where we are sending it. Just imagine that this data is coming from database, this post data here. Just imagine that it is coming from database, which we are going to implement that later on. Okay, now that we have the post here, let me save it and go back. Let me also save it here. Our server is running. Let's go back to the browser. Now let's try to get all the posts again. Okay, here we have all the posts, guys. We have all the posts. All right, you can see that all the posts has been displayed. Let's go back to the server. Here we have the route that enable us to get the post by ID. So I'm going to cut the handler function as well. Let me just cut everything. Go back to the post controller. I'm going to define another function, export const get post by ID. Let me just name it get post. So it is going to be equals to the function we just copied. So we just exported it, then save it. Then let's go back. Let me import get post here. Get post, just like this. This is where we post. I'm going to copy the handler function, cut it like this. Go back to our controller, export const add post equals to, we just paste everything here, just like this. Save it. Let's go back to the post route. Here I'm going to import it, add post. You can see they are being imported from the post controller. Okay, this is the handler that enable us to update post. I'm going to just cut everything, cut it like this, then go back to the controller, const update post equals to, just paste it. Then I'm going to export it, export, save it, go back and import it, update post like this. Then we have the handler to delete post, cut everything, go back to the post controller, export const delete post, then paste it like this and save it. Go back and import it. Let me import it, delete post like this. Save the work. You can see how we organize our data, guys. Our post route has been organized like this. Let's go back to the browser and try to see if everything is still working, guys. Okay, I go back to the browser. Okay, let's try to get all the posts. Okay, we have all the posts, everything is still working. Let's try to get a single post with ID of 1. Press enter. Okay, we have a single post, guys. Okay, now let me open a postman so that we can test other methods. Okay, postman is launching. So we have the get route. Let me send the request. Okay, there is error. The error is because we are still using port 3000. Let me change the port to 3600. Then send the request. Okay, we have all our posts. Then post with ID of 1, send it. Let us try to make a post request. I select post, go to the body. Okay, we have a dummy data here, guys. Okay, sample post. This is a sample post and the author is Jendo. It is a JSON file. Let me send the request to add a new post. Okay, there is error. The content you are looking for is not found. Let me remove the ID. Okay, to add the new post, we don't need to put the ID. Let me send it now. Okay, post created successfully. You can see now we have 7 posts. You can see that a new post has been added. If I try to get all the posts, let me get all the posts, send the request. We have 7 posts. Even if I go to the browser now, I go to the browser and get on the post, now we have 7 posts, okay, and you can see the new post we added. You can see that after refactoring our project, our app is still working, guys. Okay, let me go back to the server. Okay, you can see how clean. If you go to the app.js, we only have one line of code, guys, that serve the route here. Okay, you can see how clean our app.js is now looking, guys. And if you go to the post route, it is also looking clean. Okay, I can equally remove all this comment, but I'm going to allow it. Here we have already defined the route in a separate file. Then the handler function, or this handler function, we define it in different file, which is the controller. And here, this is we have our database. Okay, when we link our database, you are going to see how we are going to import it here. Okay, the next thing I want to show you guys is that if we go to the app.js, we just say app.use post router. You can see we just say app.use post router. But if you want to add a path, you can also add it. Okay, I can equally say that I want to access everything under API. I can say /API. All right, I can just say /API like this. And now, for me to access everything I define here, we need to include API. And how do you know? Let's go back to the browser. If we try to access this now, we are going to get error. I try to access it. Now we have cannot get posts. Okay, this is because we already tell our app to use API. Okay, this is what we define here. We say app.use. What it means is that we want to serve this post router when a user visits /API. Okay, that is API / whatever we define here. Now it should be API /post. API /post. Let's go back to the browser. Now, for me to access this post now, I need to access it like this /API. Okay, that is after the port, you API /post like this. If I press enter now you can see we are now accessing it like this. Any other request you are making, you need to use /API. Okay, if I remove /post now and try to go to the home route like this, now you can see cannot get, because this slash is no longer available. We no longer have this route. Okay, you need to access this route from /API. API. If I go to /API like this, you can see it is now serving, the server is running like this. This is because we have already defined the path that our app.use the API. All right, everything concerning this post route, you need to access it from this path. Even the error handler and the not found, all of them are now related to /API like this. Okay, if you want to use the one we have already defined in the post route, okay, all this link like this, then you need to remove this one. You need to remove it like this. Now it is going to use all the route we defined here. All right, that is how to restructure our API, guys. In the next video, I'm going to show you how to serve the data from our database instead of the dummy data. Okay, instead of just serving the dummy data, we are going to be retrieving the data from the database. That is what we are going to learn in the next video. Stay tuned.